Welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we are going to be looking at an article that I found in the archives. It is by Peter Ross, and it is called Short Sunshine Sketches of Steelton. So this is another nod to our neighborhoods project. So if you haven't already heard, we are collecting information on the various neighborhoods here in the Sault. So if you have any stories, photos, videos, anything you would like to share, please contact the Sault Ste. Marie Museum and share more about these neighborhoods so we can build a picture of our vibrant city. So let's get into the article. Short Sunshine Sketches of Steelton by Peter Ross. Photos courtesy of the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. The major merchant area of Steelton ran along Wellington Street, west from the east, John Street, and the CPR tracks to the ACR tracks in the west. Merritt's Pharmacy stood at the northeast corner of Boydell Place and Welling Street West. It's where I was born, June 1944, on the second floor rear apartment. Across the laneway in the backyard was Thayer's Lumber. When I was old enough, I spent a lot of time watching the goings-on. Huge trucks unchained their cargo of logs under our very noses before the enactment of safety codes. The ground shook and the air rumbled like thunder as the great tree trunks bounced like toothpicks. Mr. Bailey lived over the handy store. Down the lane he boarded 2 horses. They dragged the logs to the steam sawmill for cutting into lumber. When I was a tyke of 4 or 5, Mr. Bailey would let me take the reins and guide the team homeward. I felt so proud commanding the great beasts. It didn't matter that Mr. Bailey walked behind me, handling the reins, being the real horseman. Later, towards the 60s, Merritt's moved across the streets and the Big Boy restaurant opened. The children played games of hide and seek and tag over, under, and atop the piles of log hills when no one was around Thayer's Lumber. There were deep crevices between rows of logs, and the logs themselves were liable to shift with the slightest vibrations. It was dangerous and exhilarating, fun to scamper over those giant tree trunks like mountain goats. Parents cringed at the thought of a crushed son or daughter, but seldom were there any accidents. Either we were agile and prophetic at judging unsteady footholds, or the giant spirit guided our steps. Looking back, I shudder with horror to think we played games in the jaws of death. Later in the afternoon, when the Sault Daily Stars were dropped off at the handy store, a small black and white collie would suddenly appear. Newcomers were invited to the entertainment with "Watch this" by the store clerk, who rolled up a newspaper and placed it at Lassie's muzzle, or sometimes a little bag she carried. Lassie would make her way out of the store and up the rear stairs to present her master, Mr. Bailey, with the newspaper or other parcels. Another animal story involved the blacksmith's shop, located at the corner of Queen Street West and Hudson Street, behind the eventual underpass grill. There, in a shed not for the faint of heart, workhorses received new shoes. Amid the smoke, heat, and fire from the foundry, the farrier shod horses. He pushed and shoved at the giants, yelling while hammering on their metal shoes. He scanned me with red eyes, scolding and muttering, "Scout!" He would yell, but I managed my way back to watch. It's also where I picked up swear words unheard of by my father or older brother. The Steelton branch of the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library stood across the street from the Handy Store at Welling Street West and Beverly Street. The second floor housed a Department of Health clinic where kids got their preschool inoculations. Saturday morning, the library staff or 2 or 3 young girls showed movies, read stories, or provided puppet shows to the neighborhood children. I often wondered why the library was built on a funny triangle parcel of land instead of the usual rectangular lot. I only recently learned the library was once the town hall for the town of Steelton. The town hall was situated on a triangular rather than the usual town square or circle. Another childhood place of entertainment was the Salvation Army on Wellington Street West, across from the Underpass Grill. Sunday evenings in the summertime, the Salvation Army Band played hymns at nearby intersections, and invitations were given out to their services. This might include a visiting missionary from lands we knew nothing about. There was music, preaching, and prayers before the world traveler showed movies of his adventures. Gosh, we were so naive and simple to entertain. The area also contained the Baptist Church and the Finnish Lutheran Church, and still does. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, and there was once around the corner the Hudson Street steam baths. Kindergartners for the coming school year received their final medical evaluations and needles by the Department of Health. We were formed into lines and varying degrees of nudity, prodded and ordered around by men and women in long white coats. The coup de grace was inoculation with a large needle we were assured was painless. They lied to us blues-shaking kids, and we forever shunned their trust. The remainder is forever a scar on our upper left arm. Edith Cavell Public School once stood where S.J. Howe Public School now stands. Nurse Edith Cavell was considered a British heroine executed by Imperial Germany for refusing to squeal on wounded Allied soldiers. I attended Edith Cavell until grade 2. Most of my family graduated from there until the opening of Merrifield School. In kindergarten, we received bottled milk daily, and every so often a bitter iodine pill. We were told it protected against goiters. Now there were some who believed it was given as protection against radiation in the case of nuclear war. Mr. Howe, the principal, was there for the education of generations of children and their children. He is remembered by naming the school building after him. When television was introduced to the public, many shops left demo sets on their display windows. In Steelton, it was Hill's Hardware and Ernie's Radio and TV shop. The public, including a fascinated me, watched for hours, completely absorbed by the new entertainment. It was radio, phonograph, records, and movies all in one. The trend continued until one by one the shops disconnected their outside speakers and sales increased. Probably the biggest public works project in Steelton before the construction of the underpass and relocating of entire buildings was the Fort Creek diversion. During the latter days of the Depression, Wellington Street West from Algoma Central Railway tracks to John Street was dug up. On the south side of the street, under the sidewalk, a concrete cavern was constructed. Today, under the sidewalk, Fort Creek carries on to St. Mary's River. Steelton had a stable and viable business area, and still does in the descendants of those early merchants. My mother bought most of her day-to-day groceries at Pinch's, Consumers Distributors, and Branson's butcher shop. Later came a large type of grocery store, Wilson and Fleming's, changed to Gilbert's Red and White, today called RJ's. I used to buy my clothes at Lashes. My parents banked at the Royal Bank of Canada at Wellington and John Streets. The Croatian Hall is still there, the place of many stag parties, but the Coca-Cola bottling plant is not. Cunningham's is gone, to where women shopped for all of those pretty ribbons and things served by a dainty Emily. There may be those who still rue the day Steelton lost its artisan well water in favor of city water. There are other stories about the town of Steelton, but I'll save those for other days. So there is the story from Peter Ross about growing up in Steelton. So do you have any stories like this about your neighborhood, where you grew up, or even more stories about Steelton and even Steelton today? Please consider sharing these stories with us. You can do interviews with us where we record the audio, maybe even record the video, or you can share the photos with us, whatever you feel you want. Contact us. We will be happy to give you more information. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Did you know you can get unlimited admission to the Sault Ste. Marie Museum for a whole year for just $15? Yep, that's right, and there's more perks to that too. Go to Sault Museum, that's SAULT museum.ca, under Visit and learn more about our membership options. And if you're a business, corporate or nonprofit, we have plans for you too. Reach out to us by emailing info@saultmuseum.ca with any inquiries.
Hi. I'm J.L. Fizzell, and I write and publish poetry inspired by nature and the art of being human. These are some of my words. The poem I'm about to read for you is a reminder for all my bright and sunny people, and it's called Dear Sunshine, and you'll find it in my 4th book, Human Nature. My dearest sun, you shine so beautifully, but no matter how brightly, there will inevitably be shadows. You can't touch everything, at least not all at once. I hope that this poem took you somewhere inside yourself that you needed to go. You can listen to my story here on the Stories of Northern Life podcast. The links are in the show notes.